Yeah. Dang. Alright, folks. Shoot. This thing wants to be game today, don't it? Well, we'll get it right in a minute. Wow, this thing wants to play games today. I swear it's awful. Let everybody get in here. So we got a little speech to play. Mm-hmm. All right.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it.
All right, guys. You know this month is Black History Month, which I have a lot of respect for. Not all white people are bad. Actually, I got friends that's African Americans, and I got a bunch on my Facebooks. I said Facebooks, but yeah. We're going to the news, folks. A bunch has come out. We're gonna go with this. All right, enjoy. You might want to watch. You might want to hear this. Yeah.
That had to change to reflect what the experiments have shown. Here's what I mean.
Well, we'll get it right in a
There
minute.
was a tremendous spiritual. They've told us that everything and everyone is connected through this mysterious web or net of energy. In this episode, we'll explore what the largest and most complex machine ever built is discovered about the fractions of a second immediately after the Big Bang. I think the experiments are fascinating, but what's even more fascinating is the scientific thinking that had to change to reflect what the experiments have shown. Here's what I mean. There was a tremendous spiritual revolution that was sweeping the earth in the late 1800s, and it included the scientific community. Very well-known scientists were influenced by this revolution and the thinking that there is a field of energy that underlies our existence. At that time, it was called the ether. It influenced scientists like Nikola Tesla, Rudolf Steiner, Royal Wright, Walter Russell, and even John Keeley. So the idea that this field exists was the foundation of the philosophy of these brilliant men, and it's also the idea that allowed their revolutionary inventions to work in the way that they did. It's what made everything possible. For example, Tesla had the idea of developing a form of power that could be shared but not confined to wires and cables. It was called broadcast power. So it works much the way a television station broadcasts information. It is created in a studio or in a laboratory, in Tesla's case. The information would be sent into the field, and it would be received by receivers that knew how to tune into that information. Well, that technology is only possible if the information is moving through stuff, through something. And that's what this ether, this field, was all about. The healing technologies of Royal Rife and Wilhelm Reich worked using energy that was directed toward the body, didn't physically touch the body. And for that healing to be successful, it as well had to move through some medium, some conduit that allowed the information to get from the healing device into the body. John Keely's perpetual energy machines, the same thing is true.
Hello, I'm Brad Castillo. Did you know that Americans who bought gold in the year 2005 quadrupled their money by 2012? Even now, experts all across America predict the real gold rush is just beginning. Don't wait until the next crisis. Get started securing your financial future today. And right now, it's easy to get started. Call and request your copy of the Complete Guide to Buying Gold, absolutely free. If you have bought gold in the past, or you would like to learn more about why physical gold should be an important part of your portfolio, simply call to receive the Complete Guide to Buying Gold, filled with new and exclusive information, including the official Precious Metals Guidebook, the Diversification Strategy Guidebook, and Perfecting Gold Ownership, which will provide you important, never-seen-before facts and information you should know before making any gold, silver, or platinum purchase. With over 250,000 clients worldwide, we're one of the most dependable gold distributors in America. Give us a call today to get started.
But the idea of the ether has been around even long before the 1800s. In the 1600s, the father of science, Isaac Newton, he described a field of energy that he called the ether, and he used that word to describe the substance that he believed filled the universe and was even responsible for gravity and the sensations in the human body. The 19th century scientist James Clerk Maxwell, the father of electromagnetic theory, he believed that this ether field exists, and I want to share in his exact words, I want to share a quote. He said that a material substance of a more subtle kind, supposed to exist in those parts of space which are apparently empty, end of quote. In 1902, the Nobel Prize winner Hendrik Lorentz developed equations that gave Einstein the tools to develop his theory of relativity. Lorentz's equations believed that the ether field exists, and he said, and this is a quote as well, "I cannot but regard the ether, which can be the seat of an electromagnetic field with its energy and its vibrations, however different it may be from all ordinary matter," end of quote. Einstein, he believed in this field as well, but he's described it in a very, very different way. He said simply, space without ether is unthinkable. So the point that I'm making with all of this is this sense in the scientific community that there's something out there that fills what we think of as empty space. It has been accepted for a very, very long time until recently. It's unacceptable today, and I'll tell you, if you want to clear a room full of scientists at a scientific conference, begin your presentation by saying, "Today I'm going to talk about the ether field," and you will see them get up and leave the room. The term is not even used today, although the field itself is now being validated. Well, in 1887, physicist Albert Michelson and chemist Edward Morley, they attempted for the first time to describe once and for all if this mysterious field actually exists. This is the very famous Michelson-Morley experiment that I mentioned in the last episode. It was performed in the basement of Case Western Reserve University in Ohio in the United States, in a very nondescript building, where they built a device that is called an interferometer. Now, the image that you're seeing on your screen is the interferometer, and I'd like to take just a few moments and explain to you what it is that they were doing and what it is that this experiment revealed. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're seeing a source of light. The light is being emitted, it's moving to the right toward a mirror on the right-hand side of your screen. However, to go to that mirror, before it can get there, it must pass through another partial mirror. It is called a half-silvered mirror that allows some of the light to continue to the right and some of it to be reflected to another mirror at the top of the screen. So the one beam is being split into two. Now here's the thinking. Michelson and Morley proposed that there's a field of energy that surrounds us. It permeates the universe. It is everywhere all the time. And they believed that the field is in motion. They believed it's moving. And so their thinking was that when they shoot a beam of light through this field, if the beam parallels the movement of the field, it's going to move quicker and it will be unimpeded. If the beam is perpendicular and it has to move through this field, it's going to be slowed down just a little bit. And when that beam is reunited with the original beam, it will create an interference pattern. So let's go back to the image so I can share with you what I mean by this. So we're seeing the beam, it's coming from the left, going through the splitter. One of the beams is going straight, one of the beams is going to the top. Both are being reflected back to the center mirror. And that reunited beam is now going to a detector. Okay? In the detector, the scientists are looking for signs of the interference pattern that I just mentioned. In the experiments, they found no interference pattern. Now, in a very, very simple way of thinking about this experiment, if you and I were to go outside from whatever building we're in right now, we had a piece of tissue paper, and we held that tissue paper in our hand, and in the moment we held tissue, there was no movement in the paper. And if we assume because the paper is not moving, that means there is no wind. And if we assume because there is no wind that no air exists, of course that that's not true. The air exists whether the wind is moving or not. But this is the equivalent of what Michelson and Morley, what they believed this experiment was showing them. Because they saw no interference pattern, they said, we detect no movement in the field, therefore the field must not exist. So in 1887, the scientific papers that were published in peer-reviewed journals and the information that was accepted by scientists from all over the world stated that there is no field that underlies our physical reality. The ether field does not exist. And from this time, in 1887, all of our science has been based upon the belief of separation, that everything is separate from everything else. What happens in point A has no influence on what's happening in point B. Now, our science has done okay without this deeper understanding of our connectivity. It's obviously allowed us to send space probes to other planets. It allowed us to send people to the moon. It's allowed us to take our science only to a certain place. But now, science has reached a plateau. And in order to move further, in order to unify the theories of quantum physics and classical physics, for example, in order to explain the phenomena that are being seen on the quantum level, in order to explain the phenomena that are being seen on the other side of the universe relative to where we are now, science must accept a deeper connection. And it's for that reason, 1986, the Michelson-Morley experiment was repeated. It was repeated under the auspices of the United States Air Force. Same experiment. They have much better equipment. And you'll never guess what they found. The field exists. The 1986 experiment demonstrated that the field that can no longer be called the ether, it exists, and it exists precisely within the parameters that Michelson and Morley had predicted 99 years earlier. But this experiment, in my opinion, should have made the headlines in major newspapers and scientific journals throughout the world. Instead, it was relegated to a relatively small article, again, in the very prestigious journal Nature. It was performed by a man named Silvertooth under a very, very benign title simply called Special Relativity. It was published in the journal Nature, volume 322, in August of 1986. So if you'd like to check this out for yourself, you can go and see what the article says. What happened was when Silvertooth replicated the Michelson-Morley experiment, he found that interference pattern. And what you're seeing on your screen right now is an image showing the light without the interference pattern on the left and with the interference pattern on the right. So you can actually see what this interference pattern is all about. So, version 2, Michelson and Morley, provided the first scientific evidence for this field. But it's also raised a lot of questions, new questions. Now that we know this field is out there, scientists can stop asking themselves, is it there? And deeper questions, what is it made of? How does it work? How do we relate to this field? What does it mean in our everyday lives? Well, the attempt to answer these questions has led to the largest research project ever conceived in 5,000 years of human history. It has led to the greatest level of scientific cooperation, global cooperation, using the largest and the single most complex and sophisticated device ever built by humankind. Of course, I'm talking about the CERN, Superconducting Super Collider. CERN is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And I know there's a lot of information out there in different circles about CERN, what it is, what it does, what it means, who's using it. And I'd just like to address briefly some of those things and share with you how these CERN experiments work and what they have recently discovered with regard to the field that we're now talking about. So let's begin with what is CERN. It is the world's largest superconducting super collider. It is the largest cooperative science project the world has ever known. It uses the largest and most complex devices ever built. It began in 1953, and it's currently maintained today. It's by 22 nations maintain the CERN laboratory itself. It hosts research from over 12,000 scientists from 600 universities that represent over 70 countries. And I want to be really clear about this. The research is for university-backed projects only. So I'm saying that because I've had people ask me, can any scientist working from his basement go over to CERN and do an experiment that has dangerous implications for the world? And the answer is no. These are university-backed projects. So the point that I'm making here is CERN itself does not do experiments. CERN maintains the laboratories that are then made available to universities and research institutions under the auspices of the universities so that those experiments can be done. So what is the fundamental purpose of CERN? The purpose is to solve fundamental mysteries of the universe, and in doing so, answer the deep questions such as what is it that fills the empty space? CERN is trying to determine what happened in the first fractions of seconds right after the Big Bang, after the instant of creation, to determine what is matter actually made of? What is the field that we're talking about made of? I had the opportunity to visit CERN myself in 2017, and I want to share with you a little bit of my experience and what I discovered. It is an amazing place, and I think that we are not really hearing about some of the very, very powerful discoveries that are being made there and what they really mean to us. So let me just...
It's not an amazing place either. It's messing up Earth. They need to shut it down and shut it down completely. Hope you enjoyed the Nicki Minaj creation that I created.
Describe the laboratory itself. The laboratory is actually made of multiple laboratories. It is made of 6 particle accelerators, 1 particle decelerator. So 6 laboratories where they are accelerating quantum particles at very high rates of speed, and 1 where they slow it down. All right? It's actually so...
Captain, Discovery is about to be swept up in a time tsunami, which is not as cool as it sounds.
Maximum warp, get us out.
So big, the laboratory is so big, 2 different countries. It holds France and Switzerland. So when I was visiting, we actually had to cross an international border to get from a laboratory to the cafeteria, for example, or from the library to where some of the experiments are. The device itself, devices, They are located 150 meters under the surface of the Earth. And what you're seeing on your screen is a schematic diagram of how these laboratories work. What you're seeing are the circles. These are the accelerators, where particles are accelerated just under the speed of light and then allowed to collide in very specific locations so those collisions can be monitored. But before the particles can reach those speeds, they go through other particle accelerators. So you're seeing in the bottom of your screen, there's a red oval, and there's a smaller red oval. And there are blue lines then that represent where these particles are being directed from the smaller ovals, where the particles are being prepared for the experiment and accelerated to certain rates of speed. And they follow the blue lines up into the larger and the larger accelerators, where you see those larger circles. So bottom line of what's happening here is that inside of the particle accelerators, there are two tubes. And in one tube, quantum particles, generally protons, are accelerated in one direction until they reach just under the speed of light. And in the second tube, another set of particles are being accelerated in the opposite direction until they reach just under the speed of light. And there is a very specific point then where these particles are allowed, they're directed to come together and collide with one another. This is the particle collision that we're talking about. And when that happens, the quantum particles are destroyed in and of themselves and broken into fragments.
Space. The final frontier. We have always looked
Of their constituents. And these fragments, these smaller particles, create very specific traces, very specific patterns that can be mapped, have characteristic qualities that scientists know. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is a typical map from the resulting collision of quantum particles. And each of those paths that you see is tracing a path and a quality and a characteristic of an even smaller constituent of the particles. So in this way, the scientists are beginning to understand the elementary particles, the stuff that goes into making up the matter as we know it in the world today. I've spent a lot of my adult life studying ancient and indigenous traditions, and although, as I've said, they're not always science, a lot of those traditions give us tremendous insight into what science is revealing in our world today. In the Hindu traditions, for example, the creation deity, actually three deities, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the maintainer, and Shiva. And Shiva is typically described as the destroyer, although if you go into the Hindu traditions themselves, Shiva is not so much about the destroyer. Shiva is the transformer or the regenerator. So the particle must be destroyed before it can be transformed or regenerated into something new. So it's not the destruction in the sense that everything is just gone. What was once present is destroyed to reveal something deeper. And I'm sharing this with you because at the CERN facility, the country of India donated the image you're seeing on your screen right now. This is the image of Shiva, the transformer, the regenerator, to symbolize what it is that's happening at the CERN superconducting, super colliding laboratories. And I think this is fascinating that we see this. So the question, what is it that's actually being transformed, as Shiva is saying, or regenerated? Well, I'm going to talk about the field. Before I do that, we're going to talk just a little bit about some really basic physics and where we are in the world right now. When I was in school, back in the 1950s, 1960s, early 70s, I was taught that the atom looks like what you're seeing on the screen right now. It was things moving around the thing. Particles called electrons that are moving around the nucleus. And this is the model that has gotten science so far. However, it is also the model that's breaking down because we now know that the atom doesn't look like this. The atom is not things moving around things. This model of the electron, the proton, and the neutron, as well as it served us, technically, we know it is no longer true. The atom is made of fields of energy, pulsing, vibrating fields of energy that are concentrated in some places more than others. This new model, this vibratory model of the atom, has given way to the particles and the subparticles now that are so complex and so numerous, they're actually called the particle zoo. You remember when you and I were in school, probably, we thought that physics was complex when we talked about the atom being electrons, protons, neutrons, and all the things that go with that. Well, the particle zoo now has gone far beyond electrons, protons, and neutrons. They're telling us now the new standard model that all matter is made of leptons, bosons, and what are called hadrons. Under the category of leptons, this is where we find our familiar electron as well as other particles. Under the category of bosons is where we now find photons. And under the category of hadrons is where we now find things like the protons and the neutrons, as well as quarks and a lot of other things. This is a very, very different physics that has unfolded as a result of what has been discovered at CERN and other laboratories as we look into these fundamental particles. Now, all of this is going somewhere because everything that we're learning about this physics must be occurring within the conduit of stuff. There's something out there that is allowing all these interactions to happen. And this is where we're going with this whole thing right now. So, when we look at what is now called the standard model of physics, you were born in God. You're seeing it on your screen. What you see is that there's some particles that are related to matter, some particles are related to force, and some are theoretical, such as the Higgs particle. And you're seeing it in a gray box. It's got a circle around it. The Higgs particle, if the standard model is accurate, if it works the way we think it really works, then we should be able to find, under certain conditions, this Higgs particle. And if that particle is there, it's going to open the door to even deeper questions, but it's going to give us a lot of answers at the same time. The question that the physicists are asking, is there an ultimate particle? Now, we've gone from the atom, as we used to think of it, now to this particle zoo. Is there an ultimate particle? Is there what is called a God particle? This is the term some physicists are actually using now. Is there a God particle that is the fundamental particle for all things? Well, I'm going to come back to CERN now. CERN is recreating the Big Bang to answer this question. It's not so much about the Big Bang itself, that primal release of energy. It's what happened just fractions of a second after that release happened. As the universe began to expand, something began to change. And certain particles that were created in that release did things that cannot be accounted for right now. Some of the particles slowed down. Some of them continued moving at the same speed. And scientists are saying, why? Why would some particles slow and some particles continue at the same speed? Why would some particles begin to have mass and other particles not have mass? Well, the current theory is this, that there's an unrecognized field of energy that was responsible for those changes. And that field has been known as the Higgs field, in honor of the creator of the theory, is a physicist named Peter Higgs, who's still with us today. On July 4th of the year 2012, scientists at CERN made an announcement that absolutely rocked the scientific community. They announced that through one of the CERN experiments, they had discovered a new particle, and it was in the mass region precisely where that Higgs particle was predicted to be by the standard model. They'd never seen it before. So they said, if the standard model is working, and we collide these particles and they break down into their elementary constituent particles in the area of a certain energy level, we should see something. That energy level is 126 giga-electron volts. They'd never looked there before. And when they made this discovery, lo and behold, there was a particle with precisely those characteristics, precisely where they predicted it was. It is now called the Higgs boson, the Higgs particle. So the properties of this Higgs boson are precisely consistent from where Peter Higgs had predicted. Well, this is important, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, because for the Higgs boson to exist, there must be a Higgs field that it is emerging from. The Higgs field is the elusive field that we're going to be talking about throughout this program. The Higgs field has now been validated. The Higgs field is believed to be the field that scientists have been searching for 3 centuries now, since the time of Isaac Newton. The ether that fills the empty space. It's now accepted that this Higgs field is the field that exists everywhere, all the time. It's what gives particles their mass. So, at the time of the Big Bang, just after that primal release of energy, particles were created, they began to expand. It is moving, because they're moving through the Higgs field, that some of the particles interacted with the field in a way that slowed them down and gave them mass, while others continued to move at the speed that they were originally. This is, in the scientific world, this is a blockbuster discovery. This is a landmark discovery, because this field that has been questioned, the speculation has been, does it exist? Is it there? We now know that it is, and it's given many names. Some people simply call this the Higgs field. Some people call it the field. Some are calling it the source. Some are calling it the matrix, as Max Planck. Some are calling this the divine matrix. And for the rest of this program, just to make it easy for our conversation, I'm going to use either the term the matrix or the divine matrix to describe the field that we're talking about now. So the question is, now,
Remember the movie Matrix? That's what I've been saying for the last, I don't know. The Matrix is part of CERN. But CERN, like I said, is bringing in the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the storms, and wormwood. Like I said, when wormwood shows up and everything, what are they doing? They're trying to cover it up with storms and rain and snow and clouds and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to get at is CERN Switzerland must be stopped. If it's not stopped, our crops is going to be gone by 2025. Y'all need to share this. Y'all really need to share this, because if you've not heard, 58,000 recalled chicken today. 58,000? Didn't they say 3 months ago there was going to be 60,000 arrests from the elites, from pedophilia? Makes you want to say, You don't have to like, you can dislike my videos all you want, but I'm telling the truth.
now we know that the field is there. This matrix is there. What does it do? How does it work? Well, this field fulfills 3 fundamental principles that make your life possible, my life possible, and the world as we know it possible. Number 1, the field is the container for all things. All things that we know, all things that exist in the universe are happening within the confines of this field, of the divine matrix. Number 2, it is the bridge between our inner and our outer world. It is the bridge that explains how our thoughts, feelings, emotions, our prayers can be created from within us, but find the people and the places that are the object of our prayers, whether in another room or halfway around the world. It's the bridge. And number 3, this field is the mirror. It's a quantum mirror in our world for what we truly believe in our mind and in our heart, and what we create in our imagination. So when we ask the question now, who are we? Our answer must incorporate our relationship to this field, to the divine matrix. I've spent much of my adult life exploring many of the ancient indigenous traditions of our past, and my exploration has taken me into some of the most magnificent, beautiful, and remote, and isolated, and pristine places remaining in the world today, such as the monasteries of Tibet that were very available to me in the 1990s as I was taking groups into these places. And it was in one of these monasteries that I had the opportunity to meet with the elder, the abbot of the monastery, and it was while I was writing the book titled The Divine Matrix. And I asked this abbot, from his perspective as a Buddhist scientist, as a Buddhist scholar, I asked him, what is the stuff that fills the field of everything? What is the stuff that holds this universe together? What is the force that allows everything to be as it is in the world today? Well, my Tibetan is terrible, so I was speaking to him through a translator. And he and the translator launched into a conversation without me, back and forth, bantering, because of the uncertainty that he had in terms of my knowledge level and how to answer the question. And suddenly, the translator looked at me and answered my question with a single word. And the word was compassion. So the answer to my question, what is the stuff that fills the universe? What is the stuff that holds everything together? The abbot had just answered me with the word compassion. And I looked back at him and I said, is compassion a force that fills the universe? Is it the stuff that holds everything together? Or is compassion an experience that we have within our bodies? And once again, the translator and the abbot had their conversation back and forth. And then they looked at me with a single word for the answer, and the answer was simply yes. That compassion is both a force that fills the universe, that holds this world together, and it is an experience that we create within our bodies. Now, I'm sharing this with you because on the cold, damp floor of a monastery at almost 16,000 feet above sea level on the Tibetan plateau, this beautiful, powerful, brilliant Buddhist man had just shared with me one of the deepest secrets of the human experience, that we have within us the ability to interact with the force that fills the empty space of the universe. And that interaction and that force is the focus of their lifetime of study. So when I asked him about the role of compassion in our lives, what he was saying to me is that because this field is a mirror for everything that we create within us, we create compassion in the world by becoming compassion in our lives. The field is reflecting what it is that we become. In other words, we must become in our lives the things that we choose to experience in the world around us. So the rules that govern Planck's field, the rules that govern the Higgs field, the rules that govern this field that the abbot is describing for me, those rules tell us why the abbot was absolutely correct when he said to me that we must become in our lives the things that we choose to experience in the world.
So, do you believe what CERN is saying? That's the owner of CERN, folks. One of the guys that speaks about CERN. I know they're wrong. I know they're lying. I know they're stupid. I know they're ignorant. They're blowing up Earth, guys. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they don't shut it down, your West Coast is going to be toast. That is going to be how it goes into water. Louisiana is going to go into water. I mean, the whole Earth is going to crap, folks, thanks to CERN. Let's keep on going. Breaking news, the ramping up proxy war with Venezuela, and China is sitting with the leader of Venezuela. Breaking news from former military, Dabu 777.
Taking a look at this proxy war that's being waged here between many different countries, but at the heart of it, it is the United States and China. Of course, you could throw Russia in there as well, but China being locked up here in this trade war, and China being at the forefront in terms of a lot of different things, a lot of different avenues. If there was going to be a country rise to the occasion if the US dollar fell, well, the IMF has positioned the Chinese currency to rise if that was to happen. Now, in terms of other contracts and allies globally, we have China and Russia that have been taking care of Venezuela for some time. They have all kinds of contracts in place. What China's been doing strategically is they have been been going from spot to spot like Pakistan, Kenya, these different ports, these different areas that are strategic to them. And they are saying, hey, we'll give you a boatload of money, we'll give you this big loan, but if you default on it, we can control the port for the next 99 years. This is what they've done left and right. They've snatched up the port in Pakistan, they've snatched up the largest port in Kenya, and they're moving all through Africa. Now, when we look at South America, they've been making moves here as well, and they have vital interest when it comes to Venezuela and Venezuela's oil. China has a program with Venezuela, and they've had this for some time, where they have loaned them money, and in return, they get oil as a repayment. It is part of an oil for loan agreement program where some $50 billion was lent to Caracas. And they're saying that since Maduro took office, things have trickled down. But there's been a ramping up in terms of the militaries working together. They also state that even though the mainstream's not talking much about it, China has had a hand in everything that's been going on in Syria. And they have troops all over the place. They're utilizing them all over the place. And in this instance, I do not see them just letting this go. Now, there's another issue. If Juan Guaido takes power, like full blown, and Maduro and his whole regime gets toppled, ran out of the country, whatever happens, they're saying that Guaido, the new leadership, could basically say, citing national security, that they cannot pay back China. And if it all goes down the right way, they could flat out say, we're not paying you back a dime, and dare them to do something about it. But at this point, it's pretty obvious that Venezuela is very important to China here. And in terms of a proxy, this is what's playing out. Look here at the imports for Venezuela for China. Over 125 billion, approaching 150 billion, almost all of it is in oil. So both China and Russia remain their biggest arms supplier, and we already know that Russia has mercenaries on the ground protecting Maduro and his forces. But I wanted to put this information out there with the connection to China. There's more information here at this link I'll leave below that you guys can read up on. Make sure to follow me on Twitter for the latest updates as well. It's been Dabu7. Peace.
He's the man. One of the men that I work with, that I believe and trust. Don't trust a lot of people, but I trust him. Panic in D.C. Breaking news. Panic in D.C. This is CIA speaking about this. James Munder.
Alright, what's going on, you guys?
Something's up. Panic in D.C. is a monster. Who controls the Senate? I already told you. The NWO, the Illuminati, the 13 world banks.
Alright, so Q is actually back up. Yesterday, posted this picture right here of planes flying. Go ahead and download that. Like I said, I had trouble with Discord. My voice, being able to talk with people got taken away, or something happened, and I've been doing everything, and I want it back so bad. And I got a new SD card. I did a reinstall on my phone. I obviously erased and reinstalled the program. But I'm just thinking, I'm like, what else could it be? So I just did that on my phone, and I did that on my computer as well. But I wanted to go over Ruth Bader Ginsburg's history in here, because there's very good information, and I wanted to share that. But this was actually yesterday at 10:23 a.m., and it shows planes being scrambled. And then right here, this is another good one. Democrat Party, when you can't raise money organically
through party individual donations, voter base, you steal it from the American taxpayer and give it back to yourself in the form of campaign contributions. Example 1 is Planned Parenthood. $1.5 billion provided in taxpayer.
I gotta stop it for a minute. Breaking news, and this is big. Wow. Congress and Senate will be built on the AI, like I told you months ago was going to happen. The AI will be controlling all the bills. It won't be Congress anymore, folks. I told you when Obama gave the internet to ICANN, October the 1st, 2016, that we were all going to go to shit. And that's what's happening, folks.
Funding over 3-year period. Case number 1, Planned Parenthood spent $30 million, disclosed real estimates close to $65 million in taxpayer subsidies to influence the outcome of the 2018 midterm elections. Conclusion? Should it be legal? Should it be legal for a taxpayer, Democrat, Republican, or independent funded organization to donate massive amounts of money to the Democratic Party in an effort to sway an election? Democratic insider term T-wash. T-wash. T_wash. Democrat insider term T-wash. Riri drops regarding Soros and taxpayer funding. Your hard-earned tax dollars at work. Vote, vote, vote. Last post before going dark regarding Planned Parenthood. What events followed that post? Coincidence? Anons understand. Definitely Planned Parenthood is part of the cult.
Yeah.
It's part of the eugenics program. Fake news control over those who do not think for themselves limits exposure of truth. Democrat Party con. Hold on, I wanted to go over the Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now this is realclearinvestigations.com. It's an article. Former CIA Director John Brennan investigated for perjury. Democrat House focus on POTUS. Insurance extension from Mueller to House. GJ testimony underway in several states. Attempts to block, protect themselves will fail. Far beyond political corruption, sedition. Law governing removal of a sitting Congress, man or woman senator. Law governing removal of a sitting Congress, senator. Oh, lights on. Definite an operation to get rid of this guy, and that's why they want to get rid of him so quick. Definitely. Definitely an operation underway from the good guys. Hell yeah.
It's not good.
If a woman is selected as the nominee, does that eliminate the wrap-up smear regarding sexual assault? What other tactics might be planned to block and or force name removal? Why is the Senate important? Who controls the Senate? 5347. 53-47. Enjoy the show. Here's the Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh, son of a gun, I can't, okay. Why was she selected? Who appointed her? Remember her history. Reference 230-page book called Sex Bias in the United States Code. Published 1977 by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Highlights. called for the sex integration of prisons and reformatories so that conditions of imprisonment, security, and housing could be equal. She explained if the grand design of such institutions is to prepare inmates for return to community as persons equipped to benefit from and contribute to civil society, then perpetuation of single-sex institutions should be rejected. Called for the sex integration of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts because they perpetuate stereotype sex roles. Insisted on sex integrating college fraternity and sorority chapters and replacing them with college social societies. Cast constitutional doubt on the legality of Mother's Day and Father's Day
What?
as separate holidays. It gives the page numbers. It's very, very hard to read. I mean, really hard to read. How did I read it before? How the hell did I do this? I was reading it fine. Let me go ahead and download it. I literally cannot. I can't read it.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to beautiful Atlanta, Georgia, and the home of the Witness an empty space, filled with thousands of screaming people. A man, both nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Answers are new questions. The unthinkable is the expected. When truth is not the truth, what dimension are you even in?
All right. Cast constitutional doubt on the legality of Mother's Day and Father's Day as separate holidays. Call for reducing the age of consent for sexual acts to people who are less than 12 years old. Oh my goodness gracious.
That's not good.
Asserted that laws against bigamous persons cohabitating with more than one woman and women cohabitating with a bigamist are unconstitutional. Objected to laws against prostitution because prostitution as a consensual act between adults is arguably within the zone of privacy protected by recent constitutional decisions. Ginsburg wrote that the Mann Act, which punishes...
Wait a minute. Didn't I say something about that a year ago? Huh. I believe I did, folks. I'm way ahead of all of your CIA big YouTube subscriber channels. Ding. Oh, I'm back, Jack. I'm not just back. My anonymous boys are bringing your big YouTube CIA channels that's been hacking your systems and getting your address to get your guns and your drugs. Yeah, we're shutting them down. Just like BP Earthwatch. Oh, he's back. But we're just letting him get back up there and then shut him down again.
Those who engage in interstate sex traffic of women and girls is offensive. Such acts should be considered within the zone of privacy. Demanded that we firmly reject draft or combat exemption for women, stating women must be subject to the draft if men are. But she added the need for affirmative action
and for transition measures is particularly strong in the uniformed services. An indefatigable censor, Ginsburg listed hundreds of sexist words that must be eliminated from all statutes. Among words she found offensive were man, woman, man-made, mankind, husband.
The government's going to do to depopulate the country. Just shoot you. They're not even going to ask questions either. They're just going to shoot you. You're welcome. And guess who's doing it, everyone? Guess who's processing the pot? Israel, out of all people.
Daily function. What is the real medical diagnosis of RBG? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? The clock is ticking. Panic in DC. I wanted to share that with you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
He's right. But it's about time, for crying out loud. Wake up, dude. Donald Trump's not with us. David friended me. I don't know who that is. Y'all got to share these videos, folks, if you want this channel to be stronger and stay on. If you don't, then I don't know how to explain it. We got more news. Yeah. Hope y'all enjoying the game designs in Black History Month. Let's see here. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Huh?
I need help.
Okay.
Alright, so this one is
All right.
on the Daily Star. Alright, so
Yeah,
this
I'm back.
one is
Enjoy.
on the Daily Star. They throw a lot of truth
This is the final match of the night. Hope y'all enjoy it.
in the Daily Star, believe it or not. Killer 5G warning. Expert warns superfast broadband could cause cancer in humans. Superfast broadband could be a global catastrophe, kill wildlife, give people terminal diseases, and cause the Earth's magnetic field to change, according to shock claims by a technology expert. That's her right there.
The following contest is a steel cage match. And it's for the Athletics Championship.
By the way,
Millions.
I wanted to let y'all know this. This will be your home of NASCAR and Forza. We're going to do the 24 Rolex race this week. Yes, this week, folks. And then next week we'll start Speed Weeks in Daytona. So enjoy this channel. It's going to be fun. Just like I did in the past. I just started in the channel because this channel is going to fibromyalgia. I'm supporting fibromyalgia too and the cancers.
Billions of us constantly call, text, click, take pictures, and play on our cell phones. Even the top cellular radiation researchers from around the world have a hard time untethering. But they gathered recently in North Carolina to talk about cell phone concerns and whether they really do increase our chances of developing cancer. The panel voted that the results from years of testing on mice and rats were more significant than originally thought. They say they found clear evidence that phone radiation caused tumors in the hearts of rats, similar to tumors in people.
In humans, it's seen in the vestibular nerve in the ear, the acoustic nerve. We found it in the heart, although our animals were exposed in their whole body condition.
While a given animal is not making a cell phone call, they are, throughout their short 2-year lifetime, getting the same exposure that we would expect people to get in their 70+ years of life.
Activists are now calling for more protection, citing separate studies from France and Italy.
Many brain tumor lawsuits going on right now that are waiting for a study like this to prove that people's from radiation.
And there are new concerns on the horizon. 5 5G is about to debut a stronger system of broadband. Some activists say the government has a responsibility to increase regulations.
And I think it's also a responsibility of the ones making up the phones to make them as safe as possible. And I'm sure they can do better than what we actually have.
Wow. Arthur Robert.
Just how concerned even out.
Arthur Robert Furstenberg is an American author and activist on electromagnetic radiation and health. He founded the independent campaign group, the Cellular Phone Force, and since 1996, he has argued in numerous publications that wireless technology is dangerous. In his 1997 book, Microwaving Our Planet, The Environmental Impact of the Wireless Revolution, he claimed the telecommunications industry has suppressed damaging evidence about its technology since at least 1927. 1927. He has recently started an online petition calling on world organizations such as the UN, World Health Organization, and EU to urgently halt the development of 5G, which is due to be rolled out this year. That's why they're rolling it out. You think they're rolling it out to give us fast internet? Are you out of your mind? Speaking to the Daily Star Online, he explained there is about to be as many as 20,000 satellites in the atmosphere. So he said there's about to be as many as 20,000 satellites in the atmosphere. The FCC approved Elon Musk's project for 12,000 satellites in November 15th, and he's going to launch his in mid-2019. I'm getting reports from various parts of the world that 5G antennas are being erected all over, and people are already getting sick from what's there now, and the insect population is getting infected. This could become a global catastrophe. When the first satellites were launched in the late 90s for mobile phones, on the day they were launched, people sensitive to these things got very sick. The mortality rate rose in the United States by 5 to 10%, and there were reports that birds were not flying. People who realized this the most were pigeon racers who released their birds who then didn't return. So people who realized this the most were pigeon racers who released their birds and then the birds did not return back. Deadly. The technology expert claims wireless networks are potentially lethal. Oh, wow. Suppressed. Furstenberg claims research has been kept from the public. And that was only 77 satellites. So we are very frightened at the prospect of 20,000. The whole picture is that everyone on Earth is getting addicted to their mobile phones. According to Furstenberg, wireless networks are harmful for humans, and the development of the next generation is defined as a crime under international law, he states in the online petition. See what it says right here? Wireless networks are harmful for humans, and the development of the next generation is defined as a crime under international law. The petition adds 5G will massively increase exposure to radio frequency radiation on top of the 2, 3, and 4G networks for telecommunications already in place.
Wait a minute, didn't I say that too? It's actually going to flip the earth too. Huh. Makes you want to say, And they say I'm lying. And I'm crazy. We'll see who's crazy when your brain's fried for not listening to me. This is what they're doing. Connect it. Connect the dots. You need to go to my other YouTube channels too to see this. But the medicines, the medications is the Obamacare. Medications and CERN along with 5G will fry your brain because there's nothing but particles and minerals and Fukushima, chemtrails, what else? Road spray and aluminum foil. You always hear that. You got aluminum foil over your head. Yeah, you got it, all right. Everybody does. You're right. We all have aluminum foil over our heads. Every time it rains and snows.
Radio frequency radiation has been proven harmful for humans and the environment. The deployment of a 5G constitutes an experiment on humanity and the environment that is defined as a crime under international law. Despite widespread denial, the evidence that radio frequency radiation is harmful to life is already overwhelming.
That's
The
true.
accumulated clinical evidence of sick and injured human beings, experimental evidence of damage to DNA cells and organ systems in a wide variety of plants and animals, and epidemiological evidence that the major diseases of modern civilization, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, are in large part caused by electromagnetic pollution, forms a literature base of well over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies. Whoa. But many mainstream scientists dismiss the claims that there is no conclusive proof of cancer-causing radiation from phones. Thousands, 20,000 satellites are due to be launched into space.
Yep.
The WHO, the World Health Organization, said there has been no evidence of detrimental effects caused by mobile phones, despite studies conducted over 2 decades.
Bullcrap. That's a lie.
Furstenberg received a BA in mathematics from Cornell University in 71, and then went to medical school from 78 to 82. But he did not complete medical school because of illness, which he claims was due to electromagnetic hypersensitivity caused by getting over 40 diagnostic dental x-rays. He believes information about an electromagnetic waves has not only been suppressed, but that people don't pay attention to what's going on because they don't want to believe phones are damaging because of addiction to electronics. Furstenberg added, the whole picture is that everyone on Earth is getting addicted to their mobile phone.
Do you know why I'm not hurting as much? No more. I'm not taking that medication NWO bullshit anymore. Just giving you heads up, ladies and gentlemen. It's the medication. When you turn that phone on and you take that medication, what happens? You're done. I'm smart, guys. I am probably one of the smartest dudes you'll meet. So do me a favor. Keep on subscribing. Keep on liking and keep on sharing and donate to these kids in these military that walked away from the pedophile government for you that's homeless right now. Yes, they took all their benefits because they walked away from them. Seriously, folks. And when they bring in the robots, they ain't gonna need us no more. They've already been killing our military in the Middle East with drones, the UN drones. So that's thought you might want to know that. And Barack Hussein Obama did it. And he's not African American, guys. He's not. He's Muslim. He used the makeup for Weinstein. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. Well, no, it's not over. I thought it was over. Maybe it's not. I thought it was over.
Phones. The more people use their mobiles for different purposes, which will require more bandwidth, means the previous infrastructure is not sufficient. Ooh, look at that picture. That's cool. Look at that. Get rid of that. Look at that picture.
Mm-hmm. Satellites.
Pretty cool.
It's not really.
Sick. The expert says people have been sick when towers have been erected.
Yep.
Now they have to build more and more towers, and they want to make it so that 5G is accessible anywhere on Earth. This is something that very few people are paying attention to, although papers have been written and there was more concern in the past than there is today. The difference being is that people are so addicted to their phones. People don't want to see their phones as harmful anymore, but when they started, people gave warnings. The most chilling warning he gives is that the development of extremely powerful satellites will result detrimental damage to the structure of the planet. So it will result in detrimental damage to the structure of the planet. He claims the satellites could change the electromagnetic field. We are not independent of our environment. Every living organism is an electrical being. We are controlled by energies passing through our bodies. Physicists call it the global electrical circuit. There is an electrical current that courses through the ground, through the air, through the ionosphere, back down to the atmosphere to create thunderstorms when the polarity changes. Our environment is what keeps us alive, and if you alter that in any way, then people and animals will be highly disturbed.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Now we know how the bees are getting killed. When you lose your bees, therefore, you lose your, well, you lose your honey. You lose everything, folks. I mean, you need your honey. You need syrup. I'm looking for that to be next to be called out. But the chicken fingers that was called out today, 58,000. Never heard of the company, but I will tell you this. Paul Begley, you're lying, man. It is not wood and rubber in that chicken. The chicken is going underground in the bunkers for the rich people and the elites. What did I say? 60,000 got arrested. No, 60,000 went underground. I'm not stopping. I'm telling you the truth because you need to know the truth, folks. You're being lied to on the news. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's telling you the same thing I am. Not even on YouTube. Do you know why? Because they want you dead. The YouTube channels that you're subscribed to want you dead. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the game designs. I've worked my rear end off for y'all, and I'm not even done. I've got to do a weather radar on my other channel. That would be Anonymous Wormwood True News. I love you all. Keep on subscribing to all of them, even the Scorpion channel. It will be coming back soon. I love you all. Be safe. And please like, share, and subscribe because we care. You're going to love tomorrow's show. African Americans, I'm not done. I've got a lot more to show you. Take care.